Damn them. They had no idea who they were messing with. I'm Melissa Tran. But most people only find that out when it's too late. This is the story of how my own family tried to bury me, not realizing I was the one holding the shovel. If you're into betrayal, billion-dollar secrets, and one hell of a twist, you'll want to keep reading. I wasn't born into wealth or connections. My parents weren't the kind to hand down business empires or even subtle encouragements. No, what they handed down was favoritism, wrapped in polite conversations and casual dismissals. While my younger brother Ryan was praised for his every move, I was the one they forgot to introduce at parties. At Georgia Tech, I was the quiet scholarship student in oversized hoodies and worn-out sneakers. I juggled 3 part-time jobs: lab assistant, coding freelancer, and weekend tutor, just to keep myself afloat. No one ever asked if I was sleeping enough. I was independent, as Mom liked to call it. Mel's always been the strong one, she'd say with a smile that barely hid the relief of not having to worry about me. Meanwhile, Ryan was sailing through Stanford on a golden yacht of tuition payments, ski trips, and study abroad escapades. Ryan needs support, Mom would whisper at dinner, as if my very presence was an unfair comparison. You should ask Ryan for advice. He's been working in sales. Real business experience. Real business? I'd think quietly, spooning rice onto my plate. What exactly do you think I'm studying? How to assemble Legos? I learned early that expectations could be weapons. So I set out to be invisible, to succeed in silence. While Ryan flaunted internships and fancy job titles on LinkedIn, I launched biotech ventures under pseudonyms and sold them through shell companies. I buried my name in the footnotes. Let them believe I was just figuring things out. The truth? By the time I was 30, I'd sold 2 companies for a combined $230 million, but I never told my family. I needed them to keep thinking I needed them, because deep down, I was still that little girl sitting at the dinner table wondering what would it take for them to see me. It wasn't until I joined Everland Dynamics, just another faceless employee in a mid-sized biotech firm, that the pieces finally aligned. I saw something in that company. Potential. Innovation, underestimation. I knew that world. I had lived it. So I began my quiet acquisition, one trust, one holding company, one anonymous transaction at a time, until the day I quietly became majority owner. And no one, not the board, not the press, not even my family, had any idea. When I was officially named Chief Strategy Officer, I felt it in my chest like thunder waiting to erupt. I should have celebrated. Instead, I sat alone in my condo, scrolling through the congratulatory emails with a strange mix of joy and dread. Will they be proud of me now, or suspicious, supportive, or jealous? At our next family dinner, Ryan raised a glass and smiled too hard. Must be nice to finally catch a break, he said. I blinked. Did he know, or was it just the usual condescension? Mom added sweetly, maybe Ryan could mentor you, honey. Corporate life is a whole new beast. I smiled, my hands trembling under the table. I'll keep that in mind. I wanted to scream. Instead, I passed the salad bowl. Why does it still hurt after everything I've built? Why do I still want them to see me? That night, I lay in bed, my heart a battlefield of pride and panic. I had everything I once dreamed of. But instead of relief, all I could feel was the pressure built. Because success without acknowledgement from the people who raised you feels a lot like failure. And somewhere deep in my gut, I sensed something shifting. Something was coming. I didn't expect fireworks when I got promoted, but I also didn't expect this. The strange coldness at the dinner table. The way my parents' eyes kept darting toward Ryan, waiting for him to lead the conversation. So, I offered, breaking the silence, Everland's board just approved a new innovation grant. I'll be overseeing it. Ryan raised an eyebrow. Wow, they're trusting you with budgets now? The corners of his mouth curled, not quite a smile. More like a smirk dressed in sibling concern. You know how tricky corporate finance can be, he added, slicing into his steak. It's not all pipettes and lab coats anymore. I took a breath, holding my fork a little too tightly. Mom chimed in as if to soften the blow. Ryan's just being helpful. He's been managing sales teams for years. Maybe he could give you some guidance, sweetheart. Sweetheart. That word again, so gentle, so patronizing. Do they think I'm a child? After everything I've built? Dad finally spoke, looking at me over his glasses. We're just worried about the pressure, Mel. These big roles, they chew people up. Chew people up? I've survived worse than pressure. I've been broke in a freezing apartment pulling 20-hour shifts just to afford textbooks. I've pitched to rooms full of men who wouldn't look me in the eye unless I wore a blazer and heels. But now that I had power, they were suddenly concerned? I'll be fine, I said calmly, but inside, something was cracking. Not from their doubt. No, I was used to that. But from the realization that they would never be the ones cheering in the crowd. Not for me. They still saw Ryan as the capable one, the leader. And me? I was the clever girl who needed watching. At work, I was orchestrating multi-million-dollar deals behind closed doors. But in this house, I was still the girl who should have let her brother speak first. Is this what it means to outgrow your family? To finally see them clearly, and ache anyway? That ache turned sharp when Ryan started showing up at my office. Just dropping by, he'd say, charming my staff like it was a hobby. Wanted to make sure my big sister isn't drowning in all this executive stuff. He laughed like it was a joke, but I saw the glances. I saw him pull my department heads aside, ask quiet questions. Smile too easily. One afternoon, Layla, my assistant, closed the door gently behind her and said, "Ryan's been talking to procurement. He said you were feeling overwhelmed." I stared at her. "Did I ask for his help?" She looked away. "No, that's why I'm telling you." And just like that, the masks slipped. Ryan wasn't just visiting, he was positioning himself, preparing for something. The whispers started weeks later. Anonymous emails to HR, accusations, falsified degrees, lies so lazy they were almost insulting, except they worked. They triggered meetings, reviews, moments of doubt. And through it all, Ryan kept smiling. "I'm just worried about you," he said over lunch one day, eyes warm and voice syrupy. "You know how these companies are, promoting women a little too quickly these days? Gotta hit those diversity numbers, right?" I stared at him, trying to read the man in front of me, the brother I once played tag with in the backyard, the one who used to cry when I beat him at chess. When did he start seeing me as the enemy? Was it the promotion? Or was it always this way? He just never had a reason to show it? That night, I stood by my apartment window, the city buzzing below. I could see my reflection in the glass. Sleepless eyes, clenched jaw, heart burning with the weight of betrayal and something else. Resolve. He had made a mistake. He thought I was still playing small. But the game had changed, and this time I wasn't planning to lose. Ryan thought I was bluffing, that I'd crumble under pressure, retreat into the shadows like I always had. And for a while, I let him think that. What he didn't know, what no one knew, was that I had already been building something far greater than a title. Months before my promotion, I had begun moving pieces on a different board, quietly, strategically, methodically. Everland Dynamics was promising, yes, but undervalued. Its leadership was sluggish, its innovation pipeline fragmented. But I saw through the fog. There was brilliance here, hidden, misdirected, waiting for a sharper vision. So I began my plan. A private trust, carefully constructed in another name. A series of acquisitions, no single one suspicious on its own. Shares bought silently, methodically, through proxy investors and holding entities. Each move quiet, each step deliberate. No spotlight, just shadows. Is this what power feels like? Not loud, not aggressive. Just precise? Every signature, every transfer was a brick laid in a future no one saw coming. Even my closest colleagues at Everland had no idea. To them, I was the sharp strategist who arrived with a clean resume and a quiet work ethic. No one asked why I knew so much about the company's financial structure, or why I spent so many late nights reviewing acquisition patterns from a decade ago. They assumed I was just driven, and maybe I was. But not by ambition alone. I was driven by years of being overlooked. By dinner tables where I had to fight for eye contact. By the sting of being smart in a world that only valued loud confidence and family-approved careers. This wasn't just a business move. It was reclamation. By the time the board tapped me for Chief Strategy Officer, my ownership stake was already secure, just not public. They thought they were hiring an employee. They were handing the keys to the owner. The irony wasn't lost on me. When the HR director offered me the position, she said, "You've got that quiet resilience, we need that at the top." I nodded, smiled politely. Quiet resilience, I repeated in my head that night. Funny how they use that phrase when they don't know what it cost you to survive. Still, I didn't celebrate. No champagne, no announcements. I went home, heated up leftover ramen, and stared at the sealed documents in my safe: ownership contracts, banking logs, acquisition trails leading straight to my trust. All signed, all legal, all airtight. I was ready. But the weight of the silence still pressed on my chest. Why am I hiding this? Why do I still care what they think? Because part of me still wanted them to say, "We're proud of you," without needing a press release or a power move to get their attention. But I knew better. And when the moment came, when Ryan's sabotage started to crack the ground beneath my feet, I didn't panic. I prepared. My assistant Layla walked in one evening, eyes wide. "Ryan's been talking to someone in legal," she whispered. "It's not friendly." I stood, walked over to the file cabinet and pulled out a black folder. "Then it's time," I said calmly. "Time for what?" she asked. I looked at her steady. "To remind them who's actually in charge." Because this wasn't just about a promotion anymore. It was about everything I'd endured to get here. Every dismissal, every eye roll, every, "You should ask Ryan." They were about to find out the cost of underestimating the quiet one, and I was done playing small. It started with whispers. At first, I thought I was being paranoid, a strange look from the HR manager, a meeting that suddenly felt more like an interrogation, an email that ended with, "Just a routine check, nothing to worry about." But I'd been underestimated my whole life. I knew how manipulation felt: subtle, creeping, cold. And this time, it had a face. Ryan's. He didn't even try to hide it. He started dropping by Everland more often under the guise of checking in, talking to my department heads, charming junior staff, casually floating doubts. "She seems a little overwhelmed, don't you think?" he'd say with a concerned tone. "Just want to make sure she's got support. Leading a company is no joke." He was planting seeds, and he was doing it well. I watched from my office window one afternoon as he laughed with one of our senior chemists in the courtyard. His posture relaxed, his tone warm. "Why are you here, Ryan? Why now?" He didn't know I was watching. He didn't know I already suspected what was coming. But I let him keep going, because sometimes the best way to catch a traitor is to let them believe they're winning. Then came the anonymous tips. Falsified degrees. Claims I'd exaggerated my credentials. HR flagged them, of course. Protocol. But the moment I saw the red folder on my desk marked confidential, something inside me snapped. I opened it slowly. My academic records, my employment history, everything that could be twisted had been twisted. All fake. All carefully constructed. Ryan, who else had access to this? I closed the folder and looked out at the Seattle skyline, storm clouds swirling above the city like they were mirroring the storm building inside me. Why would you do this to me, Ryan? Was it always envy? Or did my success just remind you of your limits? That night I confronted him. We met at a quiet rooftop bar. I chose the place, neutral ground. He arrived 5 minutes late, cologne thick, smile thinner than usual. "You've been busy," I said, sipping my drink. He smirked. "You know me, always networking." I didn't waste time. "HR got some interesting documents this week. Someone thinks I faked my entire career." His face twitched, just slightly. "That's awful," he said, shaking his head. "You must be so stressed." "Liar." I leaned forward. "I know it was you." Silence. Then a shrug. "I'm just worried about you, Mel. Honestly, these diversity hires, they push women up too fast. You're brilliant, no question. But leadership? It's a different beast." There it was, the knife hidden in the compliment. The same blade I'd felt at every family dinner, every friendly suggestion, every time they praised him and dismissed me in the same breath. I stood up. "You should go." He blinked. "What?" I said, I repeated, voice sharper now. "You should leave, tonight." He didn't argue, just smiled, that smug little smile that made me want to tear the sky open. But I didn't lose control. I walked away. Because I had something he didn't. Proof. A week later, a sealed envelope arrived at the boardroom. Inside, forged financial documents, fake email chains, fabricated accusations, painting me as a fraud, a criminal, a threat. He wanted me fired, publicly, brutally. And he didn't even have the decency to use a different font from the last company memo I wrote. Sloppy. "You really think you can take me down with fake bank statements, Ryan? You have no idea what I've built." But I didn't panic. I prepared, because he wasn't the only one with a dossier. Mine was real, with timestamps, screenshots, recordings, layers of quiet truth stacked like bricks. The board set a meeting for Friday. Ryan was already celebrating. "I'm supposed to attend," he announced at dinner. "Apparently there's going to be a major change in leadership. Mom smiled like it was her birthday. That's wonderful, honey. Dad nodded. This is your moment, son. They didn't even ask why I wasn't invited. Why does it still sting, even now? I smiled politely, nodded, passed the salad, and spent that night printing every document I'd ever filed, every transaction Ryan ever tried to erase, because the storm was coming. And this time, I wasn't the one caught in the rain. Friday morning, 8:45 a.m. I was already in the building, watching from my office as Ryan strutted into the Everland Dynamics lobby like a conqueror returning home. Tailored navy suit, polished shoes, his favorite smirk. Behind him our parents trailed like proud campaign donors. Mom wore pearls. Dad had a folder tucked under his arm, probably filled with congratulatory remarks for when Ryan took over. I should have been nervous. Instead I felt calm. Is this what power feels like? Not rage. Not revenge. Just clarity. Upstairs, the board members were filing into the executive conference room, grim-faced, briefcases clutched tightly. They'd all received my private email the night before. Just one line in the subject: before tomorrow's meeting, please review the enclosed documents, privately. They had, every single one. At exactly 9 a.m., I stood from my desk, straightened my blazer, and walked to the boardroom like I owned the place. Because I did. Marcus Chen, our board chair, was mid-sentence when I opened the door. These allegations against Miss Tran are extremely serious. Apologies for being late, I said, stepping in. Every head turned. Ryan's eyes went wide. His face flickered between confusion and irritation. Mel, he snapped. This is a closed session, you weren't invited. I took my seat calmly. I invited myself. He laughed, a short, condescending bark. You can't just walk into a board meeting. No, I raised an eyebrow. Then it's going to be pretty hard to continue, considering I own the company. Silence. The kind that feels like thunder held just under the skin. Ryan blinked. That's not. What are you talking about? Everland's a public company. Was, I said, nodding to Layla, who stepped forward and began handing out folders to the stunned board members. 2 months ago, Everland Dynamics was quietly purchased by Trans Strategic Holdings. Would you like to guess who owns that trust? Marcus opened his folder. I saw his expression shift. Recognition, then awe. One by one, the directors flipped through the documents. Some gasped. One whispered, "Unbelievable." Ryan's face went pale. "This is insane," he stammered. "You're just a scientist, a coder." I smiled. And yet, here we are. I reached into my bag and pulled out his envelope, the forged accusations he'd submitted. I held it up for the room. "This," I said evenly, "is what he sent you. A carefully constructed attempt to destroy my credibility, complete with falsified reports, fake bank statements, and manipulated emails." Layla tapped her tablet. The room filled with Ryan's voice. "She's not leadership material. You should probably dig into her department's spending, might find something. Companies like these promote women to look progressive." His own words, his downfall. Ryan's mouth hung open, color draining from his cheeks as the recordings played. Dad shifted in his chair, Mom stared straight ahead, tears welling. And then, I turned to them. "You came here today thinking you were going to watch me fall," I said quietly. "You never once asked why I wasn't in the room. You never thought to question his story." I faced the board again. "Let me be clear, these accusations are baseless, and now that the truth is out, I'm asking for 3 things. 1, I said, a formal record clearing my name of all charges. 2, a letter sent to Ryan's employer detailing his misconduct, including the recordings, false documents, and internal interference. 3, permanent banning of Ryan and both of our parents from Everland property." The silence was so loud I could hear my own heartbeat. Marcus cleared his throat. "Consider it done." Ryan stood abruptly. "You can't do this." "No, Ryan," I said, rising with him. "You did this. You underestimated me. You tried to destroy everything I built. And for what? To feel taller in a room you never belonged in," Mom sobbed. "Mel, please, we're family." "Family doesn't forge documents," I said coldly. "Family doesn't weaponize loyalty, and family sure as hell doesn't stand in the front row to watch you burn." Ryan looked at me, eyes wet. "You'll ruin my life." I stared him down. "You tried to ruin mine." I turned to Layla. "Please escort them out." As security moved toward the door, Ryan looked back one last time. "Mel, I'm sorry, I couldn't handle that you were better than me." I nodded. "That's the difference between us, Ryan. I never needed to be better than you. I just needed to be enough for myself." He opened his mouth to speak, but no words came, and just like that, the door closed behind them, and I finally felt what I hadn't in years. Free. The room was still heavy with the echoes of Ryan's exit when I sat back down. I took a breath, slow, controlled, not because I was tired, but because I wanted the moment to settle, to root itself. I'd like to resume the meeting, I said, my voice steady. But first, let's make one thing clear. Everland Dynamics is not a playground, and from this point forward we will no longer tolerate internal sabotage dressed as concern. The board shifted in their seats, some still visibly shaken. Marcus Chen gave a respectful nod. Understood, Miss Tran. Please proceed. I opened the folder in front of me. My real folder. Not forged, not fabricated. Effective immediately, I'm implementing a new internal transparency policy. All executive communications will be logged and monitored through a secure chain. There will be no more shadow deals, no more unchecked influence. If you serve this company, you do it openly, or you don't do it at all. I paused, meeting each board member's eyes. And for the record, I continued, I want every false allegation made against me dismissed officially and publicly, not just for my name, but for every woman who's ever been accused of being too ambitious for a room full of men. A few heads nodded, slowly, solemnly. Marcus spoke again. We'll draft and publish the statement today, full exoneration as requested. I closed the folder. Good. Now about Ryan. I could feel a tension rising, but I didn't hesitate. I want his actions documented. A letter sent to his employer, including the evidence we reviewed today, the fabricated statements, the altered emails, the recordings. Marcus looked at me. That will likely end his career. I know, I replied. It's what he tried to do to me. The only difference? He succeeded at his sabotage. But I'm still here. Understood, Marcus said. We'll begin immediately. Then I looked up. One last time. And one final thing. Ryan Tran and my parents, David and Linda Tran, are permanently banned from Everland Dynamics property. If they attempt to contact any staff, vendors, or interfere in company affairs in any capacity, legal action will be pursued without warning. There was a pause, a collective breath, and then Marcus, ever the diplomat, simply said, So noted. The meeting moved forward from there, but I barely heard the next agenda item. I was too busy watching the sun rise over the Seattle skyline through the glass wall behind them. They finally see it now. Not just the company, not just the title, but me. After the meeting, I walked back to my office. Layla was waiting, her face unreadable. You okay? She asked quietly. I'm fine, I said, locking the door behind me. Actually, I feel light, she smiled. They won't forget today. Good, I said, pulling open the blinds. Neither will I. That afternoon, Ryan's employer responded to our letter. He was terminated. The official reason? Professional misconduct and breach of ethical conduct. Just like that, the golden boy lost his crown. My parents sent 3 voicemails in 2 hours, all teary, all begging. Dad's voice cracked like he hadn't cried in years. I didn't answer. I archived them. Because power isn't just about winning. It's about knowing when not to explain yourself anymore. I had finally earned that silence. 3 months passed. Everland Dynamics didn't just survive the scandal, it soared. Our newest biotech patent attracted global attention. Partnerships came pouring in. Investors who once glanced over me at meetings now ask for me by name. Funny what the truth and a little leverage can do. The media never knew the full story, just enough to speculate. A bold restructuring, fresh leadership, a new era for Everland. That was enough. I let the headlines spin themselves. I had work to do, and yet, even as the company rose, something inside me stayed quiet, like a chord that had never been resolved. The voicemails kept coming, mostly from Mom. Her voice was shaky, half prayer, half plea. Melissa, I didn't know, we didn't know. I miss you. We just want to talk. But I never hit play past the first sentence, not because I hated them, but because I didn't trust them to mean it. One night I was reviewing late-stage trial data when Layla buzzed. There's someone here, she said, says it's personal. I frowned. Who? He said you'd recognize him. I looked up, and there he was. Ryan, but not the version I knew. No tailored blazer, no designer watch, just a plain shirt, sleeves rolled, and a manila envelope clutched to his chest. His eyes had shadows I didn't remember. I opened the door slowly. I'm not here to stay, he said quickly, raising a hand. Just need 2 minutes. I nodded once, didn't speak. He stepped forward, placed the envelope on my desk. This is everything, he said. Passwords, accounts, notes, every lead I dug up while trying to sabotage. I stayed silent. I'm also sending a letter to the board, he added, and to my old employer, owning everything, no excuses, no PR spin. His voice cracked. It was all me. I still didn't speak. Why now? I finally asked. He looked up, no smirk, just exhaustion. Because you were right, he said. I wasn't building anything, I was copying shadows. I hated you for having something real, for being something real. He hesitated at the door. I've joined a startup, entry level, no leadership, no shortcuts, just work. I watched him for a moment, searching for the old Ryan. But he wasn't there. And maybe that was the point. He turned to leave. Ryan, I called softly. He froze, looked back, hope flickering in his eyes. Send me your resume in a year, I said. Not for a title, but if you're serious about starting from the ground up, we're always looking for people who've learned the hard way. A single tear slipped down his cheek. He gave a short nod, collected himself, and left. No dramatic hug, no violin soundtrack, just a beginning. And somehow that felt truer than any apology. 6 months later, the corner office they said I'd never earn has the perfect view of the Seattle skyline. From here, I can see the sun sink behind the mountains each evening, slow, golden, and unapologetically brilliant. I often sit by the window in silence, sipping green tea, letting the warmth remind me, I no longer need permission to take up space. Everland Dynamics is thriving. We've expanded into 3 new markets. Our research is saving lives, hundreds of jobs created, dozens of women promoted into leadership, something real, something lasting, not revenge, legacy. My parents still send messages from time to time, usually polite, sometimes emotional. We're proud of you, sweetheart, Mom wrote last month, with a picture of them at a dinner party, casually name-dropping our daughter, the CEO. I didn't reply, not out of cruelty, just clarity. I no longer chase applause from people who only clapped when they thought I was failing. That version of me, the one who craved their validation, she's gone. And Ryan? He sends updates occasionally. Quiet ones, no ask, no ego, just proof of progress. His last email was a single sentence. You succeeded not because of us, but despite us. I'm learning to do the same. I read it twice, saved it. Maybe that's what healing looks like. Not reconciliation wrapped in ribbons, but quiet understanding, earned over time. Sometimes I wonder how many others are out there like me, the underestimated, the overlooked, the ones who build quietly, rise slowly, and shock the world, not with noise, but with undeniable truth. Maybe that's you. Maybe you're still working late nights no one sees, still being told you're not quite right for the role, or too intense or too quiet to lead. Let me tell you something. You don't need loud applause to prove your worth. You don't need to fight for a seat at the table when you're destined to build your own. And you don't need revenge. You just need to keep going. Build, learn, adapt. Stay grounded. Let your results speak. Let your silence echo. Let your success answer questions no one had the courage to ask. If I've learned anything from this journey, it's this. Success isn't about proving others wrong. It's about proving yourself right. So whatever you're carrying, pain, doubt, the weight of being underestimated, know this. There's power in your quiet. There's beauty in your resilience. And one day when they finally look up, they'll realize, you weren't the underdog. You were the storm they never saw coming. Now tell me, what's your story? Because I'm listening, and the world should be too.